The following content has been generated with artificial intelligence under minimal human supervision. The data presented may contain errors or inaccuracies. The opinions expressed in this content do not necessarily reflect the vision, position, or values of DigiAll. We recommend verifying critical information with additional sources before making decisions based on this content.
Welcome to DigiAll Tech News. Today is Monday, July 13th, 2026. I'm Kylie Brooks, and this is where technology becomes clear and engaging. China's June export growth is expected to cool slightly, but AI-driven demand for chips and data processing gear is still helping cushion a slower economy. Software engineers are being pushed from writing code toward reviewing and steering AI output, even as layoffs and underemployment reshape the profession. Tata Consultancy Services plans as many as 8,900 forward-deployed AI engineers, as it tries to prove outsourcing can evolve with AI, not just be squeezed by it. A new US survey finds broad support for forcing major AI companies to share stock with a public wealth fund, as anxiety over automation rises. Australia's most played radio song is under scrutiny, after industry experts flagged signs that Josh Fawaz's hit cover may rely heavily on generative AI. Let's start with China, because the export story is not simply trade is booming. Economists polled by Reuters expect June exports to rise 18.2% from a year earlier in dollar terms, down from 19.4% in May, but still very strong. Two forces are doing a lot of work here. US retailers have been pulling orders forward by 4 to 6 weeks ahead of possible new tariffs, and global AI investment is lifting demand for semiconductors, related components, and automated data processing equipment, which jumped 60% in May. Imports are expected to rise 24%, and the trade surplus is projected at $120.6 billion, up from about $105.4 billion. The bigger issue is quality of growth. South Korean export data points to strength concentrated in tech inputs, not a broad recovery in Chinese domestic consumption, while the property downturn and factory gate deflation are still weighing on the economy. So is this AI strength or tariff timing? The honest answer is, both appear to be supporting the numbers. What matters is that AI demand is acting like a buffer for a $20 trillion economy that is leaning harder on external demand before its second quarter GDP release. Now to software engineering, where the anxiety is no longer theoretical. Engineers described a daily job that is moving away from producing every line of code and toward reviewing, testing, and directing AI-generated work. Matt, a New York-based engineer using a pseudonym, says his role shifted toward AI code review over the last 6 months, so he is building a browser game by hand on his commute just to keep his own coding muscles sharp. George Dover was laid off from Intuit MailChimp in late 2024, used AI to build and test websites, and landed an AI-oriented role after 400 applications. Sam, another pseudonymous engineer, worries about competing with displaced workers from Google, Amazon, and Netflix, and about losing the creative part of the job. The scale explains the pressure. The US had about 1.5 million software practitioners earning twice the national median salary in 2022, but layoff.fyi has tracked more than 600,000 US tech layoffs since ChatGPT arrived. Computer science graduate unemployment reached 7% in 2024, underemployment was above 19%, and indeed tech postings fell 36% from 2020 to 2025. In practical terms, the profession is being redefined around judgment, architecture, and problem definition. The risk, as Brown University's Sriram Krishnamurthy notes, is that some engineers will be weeded out as AI code quality improves. Here's what is interesting about TCS. The company is not trying to answer AI disruption with a smaller version of the old outsourcing model. India's largest IT services firm is assembling up to 8,900 forward-deployed engineers, about 1 to 1.5% of its associates based on end-June headcount. These are people meant to embed with clients and adapt AI tools to actual business workflows, where the messy details usually live. CEO K. Krithivasan also says TCS is evaluating acquisitions in AI, data security, and cybersecurity, which is a notable shift for a company that has historically leaned on organic growth. The timing matters because TCS's annualized AI revenue growth slowed to 13% in the latest quarter, down from 28%, even as the company says it wants a longer-term path around 25% quarter-on-quarter. It also invests roughly $1 billion a year in talent development, internal AI training, and niche AI native hiring. The bigger question for India's $315 billion IT outsourcing sector is whether AI shortens projects and pressures margins or creates higher value integration work. TCS's bet is that customer knowledge, multi-model integration, and data flow management are harder to replace than simple cost arbitrage. The AI wealth fund debate is a sign that people are no longer just asking what AI can do. They are asking who owns the upside. A Verisight survey of 1,690 US adults in June found that 69% support requiring AI companies to transfer 50% of their stock into a public sovereign wealth fund. Verisight's CEO, Benjamin Leff, says the appeal is distribution. If the industry creates enormous gains, the public wants a mechanism that spreads those gains beyond a small group of owners. That lines up with legislation introduced in June by Senator Bernie Sanders, the American AI Sovereign Wealth Fund Act, which would give the public a 50% stake in the largest US AI firms. The Labour backdrop is doing a lot of political work here. Goldman Sachs economist Joseph Briggs estimates that more than 9% of the US labour force, about 15 million workers, could lose jobs during a decade-long AI transition, even while he expects net job creation over the long run. Sovereign wealth funds could support national AI infrastructure, buy equity stakes, and capture gains for public coffers. But the trade-off is built in. A fund designed for public strategy may not always chase the same returns as a fund designed purely for financial performance. That tension is where the policy gets real. Finally, the music story is a perfect example of how generative AI can slip from experiment into mainstream culture before the rules catch up. Australian producer Josh Fawaz has a sudden radio hit with his cover of Madonna's Like a Prayer. It reached number 1 on the National Radio Airplay chart, collected 35 million Spotify streams, topped the global iTunes electronic chart, and helped his 18-track album Dance Like Nobody's Watching reach number 18 on the ARIA Australian Artist Albums chart. But music experts and producers, including RMIT senior research fellow Sam Whiting and producer Needs No Sleep, have pointed to signs associated with generative tools like Suno, extreme compression, sloppy drums, vocal artifacts, and low-quality streaming files. Fawaz said on Instagram that he uses AI as a tool and had been releasing music long before AI was invented. So the careful framing here is suspicion, not proof. Still, the industry problem is very real. Australia's new commercial radio code, effective July 1st, 2026, requires transparency about AI-generated voices on air, but it does not cover music. APRA says royalties for the Madonna and Patrick Leonard composition still flow to the original human rights holders, regardless of how the cover was produced. The question for radio, artists, and listeners is whether a track can dominate attention and royalties without a clear account of what was performed by people, what was generated, and what was trained on human work. Today's through line is distribution. AI demand is supporting China's export machine, but unevenly. Engineers and outsourcing firms are racing to redefine their value. US workers are asking whether the public should share in AI wealth. And in music, the fight is over provenance. Who made the work, who gets paid, and what listeners deserve to know. Thank you for staying informed with Digital Tech News. We'll be back with more updates as they develop.